What is up, Ivy Leaguers? We got a quick episode for you today. Let's dive right in. All right, very first thing I want to talk about is we had the first round of the NFL draft last night, and it was kind of a lot of things happened that we kind of thought were going to happen, but then there were some surprises in there. And look, obviously the number one pick, Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders, that makes sense. Okay, we knew that was going to happen. If that didn't happen, it would have been the top headline. It would have been insane. We knew Mendoza was going to the Raiders, and that's a good pick. Look, Mendoza's going to be a stud in the NFL. We all know that. He showed in college with his numbers, his QB IQ. He's a good player, and he's a good fit for Las Vegas. Let's see what he can do in the NFL. All right, then we go to number two, and it was David Bailey, to the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. He went to the New York Jets, and again, no big surprise there. That was pretty simple, pretty thought out. And then this is where it got crazy. At the number three pick, the Arizona Cardinals selected Jeremiah Love. And while it's not necessarily shocking, it just has huge implications, especially for the Cardinals, because look, the Cardinals have been a pretty dormant franchise the past couple of years. They haven't been able to do anything. And drafting Jeremiah Love, in my opinion, is the best offensive player in this draft class. I'll say that again. Jeremiah Love is the best offensive player in this draft class. That dude is so explosive. He's got nobody can match him. He almost look. We talked about how great of a running back season Ashton Genty had 2 years ago. Jeremiah Love almost had a better season this past season. Okay, that's how crazy it is. Jeremiah Love is a dog. Okay, he is very, very, very good. So I've got to say that implication for the Arizona Cardinals is huge, but they need to build around Jeremiah Love's skill set, because the truth is he had a really good offensive line at Notre Dame. I don't know if he has a great offensive line in Arizona, so he's gonna have to get used to making stuff up almost as he goes, and Arizona's got to build around him. That's the big thing. That is huge. Another big surprise, Carnell Tate to the Titans. Again, that's not necessarily a surprise, but that's just big news. Look, Carnell Tate's a dog at wide receiver. Dude's out of Ohio State. He can play. And you can see the Titans are starting to really build on that young core and build on Cam Ward at their quarterback. Cam Ward, look, I think he's a good quarterback. I do. I think he's someone that has so much potential. His ceiling is huge. I mean, I don't think we've even seen close to the best version of Cam Ward yet. I mean, obviously he was just a rookie last year, but he has huge potential. And mixing him with Carnell Tate is going to be very, very, very good for the Titans. But again, the Titans they have to build an offensive line. All right, Cam Ward got killed last year. And look, Carnell Tate's great at receiver, and he can get open, but he's got to get open quick, because the Titans do not have a great offensive line, and they need to build one right now. And when I say they need to build one, they need to build one right now. Like, starting tonight with round two. All right, and now we're going to get to the big surprise of the day. And this is going to be kind of our final talking point for the draft. For this episode, we're going to have a whole draft breakdown at a later date. But I got some other stuff I kind of want to get to because, it's fun. But the big headline was Ty Simpson out of Alabama was drafted at number 13 to the Los Angeles Rams. Whoa, that is a shock. And it's not really a shock because we knew the Rams liked him, but it is a shock because LA has Matthew Stafford, the reigning MVP, and they draft Ty Simpson, a quarterback. Why? Why exactly? Look, the Rams are a playoff contender. Why are they drafting for the future? And I'll tell you why. And look, people have been flipping out over this pick, and I don't understand why. All right? You have to constantly build for the future. If you're the LA Rams, look, yes, you're going to be competing for a Super Bowl this coming year. But Matthew Stafford is 38 years old, and he is injury prone. And You know who's currently backing Matthew Stafford up if they didn't draft Ty Simpson? A guy named Stetson Bennett, who you haven't heard his name since his college days, right? And he is not an NFL quarterback. And I'll tell you someone who is an NFL quarterback, and that is Ty Simpson. Look, Ty Simpson will be able to learn from the best, or at least one of the best, in Matthew Stafford. He'll get to learn a Sean McVay offense, which is always fun. He'll get to really grow within the system before he has to even take a snap as a starter. And then when Matthew Stafford retires in probably 3-4 years at most, then Ty Simpson will step in. And Ty Simpson will know the system, and Ty Simpson will be able to keep this team in playoff contention even after Matthew Stafford is gone. That is why they drafted him. That was the best pick, in my opinion, for the LA Rams. That was a huge pick. And if you're really upset about it, then you really got to learn that, sure, could they have drafted wide receiver? Yes. But there's still at least five good wide receivers on the board. Wide receivers that could make an immediate impact. So, but there aren't five more quarterbacks as good as Ty Simpson. I don't think there's another quarterback as good as Ty Simpson outside of the one that was drafted number 1, and that's Fernando Mendoza. So people need to calm down on that. That was a very smart pick if you are the Los Angeles Rams. And I think that people don't necessarily understand the chess match that is drafting quarterbacks and just drafting talent in the NFL anymore. Not to anyone's fault, just that they don't. And that may sound harsh, but it is what it is. Look, I'm someone, I've followed Ty Simpson very closely. I've followed him since high school. You're not going to see a harder worker than him. And he's got an IQ that's very good. He's got raw talent. And if the Rams can develop that talent, he'll be an all-pro player once he's given the reins. But it's literally the perfect situation for Ty Simpson. He can learn from one of the best, future Hall of Famer, and then he will be able to keep his team in contention when he's given the reins. And yeah, it's a great situation if you're Ty Simpson. So that's what I have on that situation. Another pick that it wasn't necessarily a surprise, but it was a pick that I was really pleased with, especially if you're a Cowboys fan. Caleb Downs. Look, Caleb Downs is a dog, all right? And he is another guy that I've followed since high school. Obviously he committed to Alabama at first and played for Alabama for a year, and then Nick Saban retired, so he transferred to Ohio State, had 2 outstanding years. He is a very, very special talent. There aren't too many players out there like Caleb Downs. If you watch his tape, it's just impressive. That's the only word you can use to describe it. Impressive. He knows... Look, he's really good at reading the quarterback's eyes as a safety. He's got the hard-hitting persona that you need within a safety. He's able to make plays on the ball. He's able to knock the ball free. He's able to stop the run. He is an all-around good safety. He's just a talent. And then, who knows, you can get the ball into his hands as a punt returner, and he'll return punts for many, many yards. He did that at Bama, at least, as a freshman. It'd be interesting to see the Cowboys work him into that situation a little. But look, he is just an overall talent. He's someone that you would love to have on your football team. And if I'm the Cowboys, I would be very, very pleased with that draft pick. That's kind of all I want to talk about for the NFL draft. I want to get on, look, y'all been giving me some awesome discussion questions, and I love it. And I want y'all to keep giving me these discussion questions. And I saw one pop up that was, give me your top 5 voices of all time. And I was a little confused on what that meant. So I was like, what top 5 voices? What top 5 voices? Like, what are we talking about? And I realized they meant like announcers. So like Jim Nantz, Eli Gold, people like that. So like top 5 voices that you could listen to from sports. And I was like, this is a wonderful discussion question. So let's talk about it, Ivy Leaguers. All right, let's break it down. So the top 5, well, not the top 5 announcers, but the top 5 announcer voices, the most iconic announcer voices of all time. I like that. So All right, top 5 most iconic announcer voices of all time. Jim Nance has to be on that list. Jim Nance is one. In no particular order, Jim Nance is one. For me personally, Eli Gold has to be on there. He did Alabama football and just Alabama sports for forever. Eli Gold has to be on there. This is where it gets interesting. I'm going to go Chris Fowler. Chris Fowler is very self-explanatory. Look, he's been on some of the greatest calls in the sport. I'm not going to say Joe Buck because, I mean, it's not iconic. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go back to my CBS days. Vernie from CBS. Vern. He's got that locked up. So that's 4. So that's Jim Nance, Eli Gold, Chris Fowler, Vern. All right, who else? All right, we got to break it down because we got the golf with Jim Nance. We got the football. I'm trying to think of some basketball ones. Ooh, I got one. Kevin Harlan. All right, I'm not saying that's elite ball knowledge, but Kevin Harlan has definitely been one of the more iconic voices throughout sports. But then there's so many. There's so many iconic voices throughout sports. I mean, think of all the great calls you've ever heard, and it's hard to just break it down. I mean, because you could argue, Kirk Herbstreit's not iconic yet. Give him a couple years. Lee Corso, you could argue, is iconic. You could argue Reese Davis. I mean, you could argue so many of these guys. Brad Nesselbaum, whatever. Gary Danielson. So many more. Man, Mike Tirico. Mike Tirico's got to be up there. This is difficult, guys. This is extremely difficult for me in my profession because this is what I want to do. So, all right, we're gonna break it. All right, I've got it. I've got the list. Now I have got the list. All right, top 5 most iconic announcing voices. All right, I've got it. Number 1, Jim Nance, and this is in no order. Jim Nance. You need no introduction. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Masters. Welcome to March Madness. Welcome to whatever. Jim Nance. All right. Then you got Eli Gold. Look, Eli Gold, just touchdown, Alabama, whatever. He's an icon in the state of Alabama. Then I go Chris Fowler. He needs no introduction. Chris Fowler has been on some of the best calls of all time within any college football game. Really, just wherever he is fun to listen to. All right. And then I'm going to change it up. I'm going to go Gus Johnson. Gus, yeah. Even his voice is just iconic. Again, it might not be the best announcing, but it's an iconic voice that you recognize. Okay? And then last but not least, Kevin Harlan. Listen, he's got some of the best basketball calls out there. It's impossible not to recognize his voice. So those are my 5 most iconic voices. Again, not the best, maybe, but the most iconic. That's my take for you. All right, it's been a great episode. Okay, we're going to keep it rolling throughout the sports offseason. We got NBA playoffs. Look, we got a deep dive into NBA playoffs. We got the rest of the NFL draft. We're going to have college football offseason. We're going to have college baseball. We're going to have more golf. We're going to have a ton of stuff. Make sure you stay tuned. Until next time, Ivy Leaguers, this is your host, Ivy Taylor. See ya and good night.